feature presentation.
Welcome back to another Untitled movie review. I am one of your hosts, Matt Rohrbeck. Alongside, he's allergic to tomatoes, but he is Tomato Meter approved, Eric Marchin.
Matt, you gotta go to Rona's.
Coronas, okay. I was gonna say, since you're allergic to tomatoes, you can't have a chili dog.
No.
Right? You've never had chili, I guess?
No, I have. I mean, so my allergies started to become persistent in 2005. So before then I was eating.
As you got older.
Yeah,
some people develop.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if it was a childhood thing or whatever. So I'm holding up a Sonic the Hedgehog comic book, everyone. Because fun fact, today we are reviewing Jeff Fowler's Sonic the Hedgehog Dose. Starring Jim Carrey, James Marsden, Ben Schwartz, Tika Sumpter, Natasha Rothwell, Adam Pally, Shemar Moore, Colleen O'Shaughnessy, Idris Elba, and more. We might have mentioned this when we reviewed the first movie. Did we review the first movie?
I don't know.
Probably.
I don't
We
care.
must have. It was right before the pandemic. Hey, shut up. Don't you dare.
Which I think that is probably one of the most interesting things about this.
We've
this
got a
franchise.
double dose of Sonic. It's only a pandemic franchise.
Well, it's been bookended by the beginning of the pandemic, and we're not
the end.
Yeah, we're not done it, but it kind of.
I use air quotes, everyone, because I don't. I went to the Blue Jays game yesterday, and it was jarring
with Ryan Hancock, right? Your buddy Ryan Hancock,
and it was jarring the amount of people not wearing masks. Anyways, back to Sonic.
Did you have a chili dog while you were?
I had a hot dog.
Were you sucking on a chili
dog
outside the
nothing better? I wanted a chili dog for Sonic. I also had a hot dog.
Hanukkah dog? Kosher dog?
I was a huge Sonic the Hedgehog fan as a kid. Hence, I found this comic book. I had a whole bunch. They were all done by Archie Comics. And
such a
hog Knuckles is in here. When I was a kid, I'm wearing a Super Nintendo t-shirt, which is kind of, doesn't make sense for this. I mean, Sonic is now on Nintendo platforms, but back in the day, he was a big part of the console wars. But I was a huge Sonic the Hedgehog fan on a Sega Genesis that my Uncle Mark introduced me to. Loved those first two games, and then became obsessed with Knuckles the Echidna when Sonic and Knuckles came out, and he was introduced that you could play the other games with Knuckles. It was a big thing. I watched the animated series, had my dad draw me pictures of Knuckles. I was obsessed with Sonic the Hedgehog and Knuckles the Echidna and Tails, a little cutie fox.
Now, were you excited when you saw the fanfic online of Knuckles getting Sonic pregnant?
No, there's a lot of weird. So Sonic the Hedgehog fans, like I was a fan when I was a kid. I still enjoyed, playing the games as they,
You talked about this. We did review this. All this is coming back.
It's probably
I talked about how
because
my dad picked up one of the original Sega consoles, and Sonic was one of the only games that we had in Major League Baseball, and then we played it once and never played it again.
Sounds about right. So that being said, I have a history with this hedgehog. And
like I said, you're a hoghead.
I feel like that plays a huge part in my opinion on both of these movies and who I think this movie appeals to. Because I feel like there's two very clear, distinct groups of people that this movie appeals to. And if you do not fall into either of those groups, there is very little for you in this movie.
Yes, it's either children or man children.
No, sure, you're not wrong, but I mean, people who are fans of Sonic the Hedgehog, whether you are a man child or a woman child or a person child of who likes Sonic the Hedgehog, or if you are a literal child.
So technically it's anybody that kind of like grew up playing the games that are now in their 30s or 40s.
Yeah.
Or so, children, I mean, small children.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if we need to give like if you want to, Eric, take it away. What is Sonic the Hedgehog?
Well, I just want to quickly say I just made light of that, and I was being a little glib, but I totally get what you're saying, because I, like you, and I think you like them as much as I do as well. Like, I love that first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie to death. Like, it's a 5-star film for me, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good movie. Part of it is the nostalgia.
Film critics watching it back then who had no attachment to Ninja Turtles or weren't a child
grew up watching the cartoon, loved it to death, had all the toys.
Yeah.
Huge fan of Krang.
Yeah, same.
So like I get what you're talking about, and I like Sonic too. I didn't love Sonic to the extent that you did, but like I remember liking the character and liking the cartoon, but
Mhm.
like
The
Ninja
Adventures of
Turtles.
Sonic the Hedgehog is the one we're talking about with the
Yeah, but Ninja Turtles for me and Ninja Turtle adjacent characters are in the same ballpark. So like I remember loving Ninja Turtles, and then also like Biker Mice from Mars and Street
Yeah,
Sharks and things
same.
like
Yeah,
that. And
same.
yeah, so like
Make
I
both of those into a movie.
together.
Yeah.
So like I totally get where you're coming from, and like I like for people that love it, that are, taking their kids to go and see it. But essentially, what Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is a sequel to Sonic the Hedgehog. The title says it all. But now we're following Sonic kind of settling down and enjoying his time on Earth. He's kind of become this vigilante type character, but also is trying to kind of be more of a hero, or what the definition of a hero is in that way, and also just kind of trying to adapt to human life and have this family. But he's also kind of missing a component of that, which is friendship. And so we see this character kind of burning the candles at both ends, like he's going out at night and saving the day, and then coming home and trying to kind of do the regular son kind of stuff and the bonding stuff. And then on top of all of that, you have Dr. Robotnik, who in the first movie, you'll remember, was banished to a mushroom planet, and is now trying to figure out how to get back. Well, how does he get back? Knuckles comes into play. Knuckles the Echidna, who is the last of his kind and is voiced here by Idris Elba, and is basically doing kind of like a Drax kind of impression. And a lot of this is kind of borrowing from MCU and Marvel stuff specifically. Like it does kind of feel
Like an even more kid-friendly version of that kind of
yeah,
stuff.
it's an Echidna kid-friendly version of Guardians of the Galaxy, and Marvel movies in general. It's very colorful, it's very bright. It is uh very hyper stylized in its visuals, which I'm all fine with. I think what bothered me the most with this movie is that Tails is another character who's brought into it, who was in the post-credit scene for the first movie, and it's sort of their friendship. But I think what bothers me the most about this movie is I think that this could have been done in an hour and 45 minutes and not over 2 hours. And I think
You're
the other
absolutely
thing
right.
that kind of bothers me a little bit with the script, one of which is one of the screenwriters, Josh Miller, who's a really wonderful podcast host of Best Movies Never Made.
Oh,
Um,
awesome.
he like, and I don't think it's him, because like I think he's a guy that actually brings some interesting stuff into it, because like Jim Carrey at one point quotes Ash from Army of Darkness when repeating the chant that you're supposed to say. So like those are things that I know that are from him.
Yeah.
But I think the sitcom-y stuff, specifically all the scenes that take place in Hawaii,
And the wedding, dude, I'm absolutely with you.
it kind of feels like that is the super indulgent, meaningless
Or you needed to
material.
have the humans in the movie, so you needed to have them
Yeah,
do
and it
something.
kind of
And
does
like
feel like, oh, like like Sonic's parents are out on vacation, or went
vacation,
to
yeah.
this destination wedding, so Sonic is doing his risky business thing at home, but then he has to kind of like pull it all back, and then there are like subplots within the Hawaiian wedding that are ridiculous, and there's a
There was
moment,
a point.
there's a
There's a point where
reveal,
yes,
there's a
and
reveal,
there's a
but that reveal in my theater got a huge, oh my god, like a genuine like shock. People did
yeah.
not see
Well,
that coming.
yeah, children and whatever. But like
Oh,
there was
adults
a
were
point
making
there were a
those
point during
noises.
that. I will kick it off by saying I thoroughly enjoyed the shit out of this movie. And I do agree with everything you are saying. Like, I absolutely agree that it is a little bit too long, and that everything in Hawaii uh, feels completely useless
Yeah.
and does not need to be in the movie. And it almost is like, well, we have James Marsden. Like, I thought it was good to get them away from Sonic, and then also have Sonic interacting with other CG characters that are more on his wavelength, like Knuckles and Tails, and then have that kind of, that antagonistic relationship with Knuckles, having the friendship with Tails and having them paired up. Like, I like that pairing so much more than him and James Marsden. Like, it's just, I enjoyed this movie way more than I enjoyed the first movie. And
Although I liked James Marsden, I didn't have a problem necessarily with him or Tika Sumpter for that matter.
I
think
agree.
Adam Pauly is someone that I don't need to spend more than like 2 minutes.
I liked
with.
it. I laugh at him whenever, but I agree that he's used not sparingly, but he's in little enough that I'm fine with him.
But he's in this a lot more than is necessary.
I agree.
And so is Jim Carrey's henchman. Like, I feel like all of that.
Agree.
At the Mean Bean
agree
is
with all of
terrible.
that. Agree. Mean Bean, great reference to Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean machine. But I like that pairing. Like, here's what it felt more like: Sonic the animated series, or Sonic, like what I know is Sonic interacting with Tails and interacting with Knuckles. It's not Sonic interacting with a human, right? Like,
Right.
That's why I like that pairing more. I think there was nothing wrong with James Marsden in the first movie, and like, I think the first movie is very serviceable, and as is this one, just a little bit more than the first to me. And I just had a really, really good time with it. I agree that there was a moment in that Hawaii stuff where I turned to Nevis and I was like, why are we spending so much time on this? like there was a moment where, like, a whole B plot or C plot where I'm just like, there is no reason this is in the movie.
It's like Saved by the Bell goes to Hawaii.
It's I'm like, I'm watching a Sonic movie. I don't need this. The kids don't need this. Their parents don't need this. It feels like it's from a completely different movie. And it's just like, I like the idea of going, okay, let's focus on Sonic and the Sonic characters in this movie. Let's bring Dr. Robotnik to 11. Let Jim Carrey be Jim Carrey. And let's focus on that stuff. Let's get the human characters away from all this stuff. We'll bring them back in at the end, obviously. But like, then they kept going to the Hawaii stuff. And I just felt like, you could have cut all of that out. Like, every single Hawaii thing you could have cut out. And maybe you have a thing at the end where it all comes full circle and they have to get caught up with them again, because you have James Marsden and you have that cast that you need to bring in. That being said, I kicked off the review by saying there's two specific groups. If you are nostalgic for Sonic the Hedgehog and you were a big fan when you were a kid, and there's some people who are still big fans of the character now, whether it's the games and things, and there's a whole fandom that is obsessed with Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah.
And I think if you fall in that group, you're going to find something to enjoy in this movie, whether it's just the interactions between Sonic and Tails, the interactions with Knuckles as an antagonist, seeing Jim Carrey as this very over-the-top classic Jim Carrey kind of hate it or love it performance as Robotnik. It is very much a kid's movie, though, like more so than like what we mentioned, a Marvel movie or something like that. Like, this is made for very young children. So I think that's the other side of it. If you have very young kids, then I think they are really going to enjoy the crap out of this movie. And I feel like if you're a Sonic fan, you're maybe not going to like love the movie, but there's going to be enough stuff in there that keeps you satisfied and goes, you know what, this is a pretty solid little franchise we have going with this character that shouldn't necessarily work, but it has worked in both of these movies. And I feel like this movie, more than the first one, brings in a lot of weird Sonic lore. It brings in a lot of those Sonic characters and like the Chaos Emeralds and like
the Master Emerald, like we should mention.
Yeah.
So the main through line in the story,
Yes.
plot wise, is that Sonic and Tails are going after this Master Emerald that Knuckles is also interested in, and then Robotnik, through Knuckles, becomes fascinated by, and that whoever has it could basically destroy the universe or control it in the way that they want to. And so you have Sonic and Tails going to Siberia and hunting down for puzzle pieces. And this is where, like, I feel like the video game adaptation aspect comes into play, where like it's like the puzzle pieces or
and there's different zones Sonic would go to, right?
The treasure hunts, right? Like to get like this piece of the puzzle in order to find
this Chaos Emerald,
for.
right?
Yeah.
Even though in this movie it's together as the Master Emerald, but the Chaos Emeralds are all a big part of the Sonic video games and stuff like that.
It's
and
like Dragon Ball Z as well.
A little bit, yeah. You collect the 7 emeralds or whatever it is. It might be 5 or 6. I'm not fully.
Well, even in the
up on my
last sequence of the
up on my
movie, it
yeah.
becomes very much like Dragon
Yeah,
Ball Z.
totally. And that's very Sonic though, too. Those are all from the games, right? So I feel like people who are a fan of this character and of the animated series when you were a kid and things like that, like I feel like this very much feels like, that animated series I loved as a kid. And I could only imagine being a kid and just really and like again, it's one of those movies like you said with Ninja Turtles. It's like it's not a great movie, but if you're a kid, this movie rules.
Yeah.
And then I feel like that's to me makes for a successful kids movie. Like I think the best kids movies are obviously the ones we reference that have a lot in there, both from an intellectual standpoint and from an enjoyment standpoint that kind of appeals to both kids and adults. Like that's clear. Like the Pixar movies, Spider-Verse, like there's those movies that are a step above your typical kids movie, right? But I think sometimes just a very solid, perfectly fine kids movie, especially when it's about Sonic the Hedgehog. Like I think this movie accomplishes exactly what it sets out to do and does it pretty well. Like I found myself smiling throughout most of it just from all the different references I could see or just like really digging, this version of Sonic and him coming into his own and building these other characters, like bringing Colleen O'Shaughnessy from she does the voice of Tails in all of the games and just having her do that voice and having I think Ben Schwartz I really like as Sonic and then Knuckles being one of my favorite characters as a kid and having him be that kind of Drax himbo kind of character is a kind of fun choice and I just like I had fun and I'm a 33-year-old man who just has this nostalgic, kind of soft spot for Sonic the Hedgehog. And I just really thoroughly enjoyed it, man. And then I thought about, all the kids in the audience were having a great time. And like, I think that length thing is a very valid criticism, especially being a kids movie and a kids movie through and through. Like there was one young girl in my audience that you could tell was starting to get a little restless by the end because it's over 2 hours, right? Like it's what, 2 hours and 6 minutes or
Yeah.
something. And she started like having to, walk around the theater and her parents kind of chase her. And she was behind us at one point. She started singing "Oh Canada." And I'm like, it was funny, but like, it was like, at the 2 hour point, you're like, okay, some young kids are going to start to feel a little drained by this movie. And I feel like the Hawaii stuff doesn't really work. The jokes, like for every joke that hits, you have two that doesn't. And like it's all that kind of classic stuff, classic kid jokes from fart stuff to, just, very zany Jim Carrey kind of thing. And then I just like going back to Jim Carrey, like, it seems it reminds me of those Jim Carrey movies that were either, we liked as a kid, but I think weren't super critically loved back when we were young too. And I feel like this just kind of falls into another one of those where Nevis was like, he's giving me big Grinch vibes watching this movie. And I'm like, yeah, it's because that's Jim Carrey doing, a villain or Jim Carrey doing a zany character. And it has basically, it feels like a Jim Carrey performance ripped from the 90s or something like that, where it's just very over the top. I love the look of Robotnik. I love, you got him in his little floating kind of car thing from the games. And there's so many little things that like that I was just like, man, you can tell that there's care. Like after they got all that feedback from that first trailer with the Sonic with the teeth and stuff like that, like I feel like they did a complete 180 and they're like, all right, we got to kind of make this very like, we have to make them look like from the games and we got to throw in references from here because this fan base does, care about that stuff. And I think the movie does a good job with all of it. And I think it's a solid kids movie that I had fun with. It's not perfect. I think it's not a great movie, but a lot of those kind of kids movies aren't. And I just feel like it's rough around the edges, but I had a pretty good time with it.
Yeah, I mean, I get where you're coming from. I just wish that it worked the same way on me. I just kind of found it to be a little bit of a slog and like it overstayed its welcome when the first one was like, oh, that was charming and like a fun watch and what have you. And then this is just like, okay, we're getting more of this, more of the same. As much as I think Idris Elba's performance is good, I think that he's miscast, at least in the sense of the voice is so because he's using his own British accent, there is something there that is almost a little too posh for the way that Robotnik continually treats him throughout. And you mentioned himbo. Like I think someone like Channing Tatum would have
Yeah.
been better suited because every time they call him dumb or they say something, I'm not buying that. Yeah, he's out of touch.
Well, he is supposed to be like a
I
warrior
know, I
too.
get
Like,
that, but I
yeah.
don't get that from Idris Elba's voice because it is so beautiful and so
Sure.
regal in its his delivery that it's like, so you're basically saying this guy who has almost this Shakespearean dialect is an
But that's
idiot.
part of it why I like, though. Like,
It didn't work for me. And then
yeah.
like Jim Carrey's performance, like I felt that he was just completely phoning it in, and like the costume and the makeup does more work than even he's doing at this point. He's just completely uninterested in the material.
See, I don't agree with that at all.
Thought that Tails was a bit of a pervert. They don't even really explore that much in this, where
That's
like
one. You mentioned that to me, and I'm like, it's like, yeah, it's
there's a
supposed to be
line
this
there's a
throwaway
line
joke,
about like
but
Sonic asks like, oh, when do I shower,
even
or
in the
what have you.
shower or
Yeah,
whatever.
it's like,
Yeah.
well, that's a trick question because you actually bathe. And it's like, oh, it's like, and Tails even says like he's a watcher, like he's a guy that sits there and does like the
He's a man in the chair.
yeah, he's like Ned, from Spider-Man. But like there was something kind of perverted about that I think kind of worked for like adults, but like kids, it's like, why would you put this in a kids movie? And again, I know that like with TMNT 2, you have the ninja rap, and then with this, for some reason, you have a dance off with Uptown Funk, and it's just
with
like
some Siberian.
it just
like,
kind of
villagers.
feels weirdly already dated.
That's a
as
very
well.
kids moment too, yeah, and I
Yeah.
agree with that. I don't disagree with that. I do disagree with the Jim Carrey thing, where I feel like it's again maybe in the sense
I don't think
of it
Jim
feels
cares. I don't.
in the sense that it's derivative of other zany characters he's played. If you're saying that that's phoning it in, I kind of understand that. But to me, I take that as him, his bread and butter, and that he, to me, seems like he's at least having fun, or else he wouldn't be doing these movies. Although he's talked about that he wants to retire, which I totally understand too. But I think he crushes it in both of these movies as Robotnik. Like I like his performance, and I think I like his interpretation of Robotnik. But yeah, I get what you're saying, and then that's why I go back to like it totally makes sense that this doesn't vibe with you, right? Like if you don't have a like you said, you like the cartoon and you liked the character, but it's not this strong thing from your childhood that you really love.
And also,
right?
there's not a lot
like,
there when it comes to the Sonic mythos. Like, I get doing, these movies because they're successful. They're obviously hitting that audience demographic that they need to, and they're doing really well. And I don't mind like them making movies, but then it's like, okay, they're setting up a third one already, which isn't surprising, but then they're also thinking about expanding it into
a
like
Knuckles spin-off.
a Knuckles spin-off, but also like a other TV series. And it's like, okay, how much of this is too much?
There's a lot of Sonic stuff, dude. Like even if you look through like this comic I have, like there's so many characters that aren't like even that they're gonna do a ton with this stuff, and it made a ton of money
do,
this
but
weekend.
I just feel that it's like, okay, like it still does kind of feel a little thin to do that much with it, to do multiple series, multiple
I don't know where else you
movies.
go when you've already done Chaos Emeralds. You've shown Sonic's kind of backstory between the owls and the echidnas. Kind of, it's very silly, and that's what it is. But yeah, I don't know how much is there from a plot standpoint or a story standpoint, or where you can keep going. That's not going to feel kind of samey. Like I'm very interested of what the hell in Knuckles TV show looks like. Like again, not something that even me, who's enjoyed both of these movies and loves that character when I was a kid, needs a Paramount Plus show about it. But I loved the animated show as a kid, so maybe there's a kids show that you can make from here that would be, whether it's a prequel of like Knuckles and the echidna race of warriors and stuff in that other world that Sonic comes from. But and with Tails, I don't know, I love that little cute fox, and I like his
find him
gadgets
annoying.
and like
I don't like him.
I love Tails, dude. You haven't.
I like
love.
Knuckles and I
I
like
love the.
Sonic, and I just there's something
I
about
love the
Tails that
relationship
always
between them.
bothered me, where like he's just so annoying. He
Ah,
is like that
yeah,
kid brother that you have, where it's like,
sure.
but here they're trying to make him more like they are trying to make this, and that's the other thing. Like again, like I know it's shortcuts because it is a kids movie, but to make that friendship so concrete,
They're
even
relying on you already knowing that they're
yeah,
best friends, which to me, kids movie, sure, they're friends right away. Sonic's looking for a friend. He
Tails
finds
likes to
it, and
watch.
you're obsessed with that. I just don't.
It's
I
weird. It is so weird that this character is like, I've been watching from my, my system. I'm the guy that likes to perv on you. It's just
How long do you
weird.
think? What's the time difference between the first movie and this one? A year?
Probably. It doesn't feel
Yeah,
that long. And I mean, it
yeah,
doesn't actually even feel that long since we had the first movie because the pandemic, I mean, like
yeah.
time has worked different in
Doesn't
the
make
last
sense anymore.
couple
Yeah.
of years. So it almost felt like we were getting like Sonic 2 like less than a year from the first movie, which it's been more than that, right? It's been 2 years.
It's almost 2 years,
Almost 2 years,
exactly.
yeah.
Because
So
the first one came out right before the pandemic. It was in like February, right before it came out, right?
yeah.
Or before, yeah, I remember that. And then one of the last movies a lot of people saw right before everything kind of shut down. But yeah, going back to like Easter egg stuff, like I love the Mean Bean reference. You see Robotnik's OG costume at one point, the air bubble in the water. Um, when Sonic is in the water at one point, and going back to him not being able to swim, and things like that. Like there are little things in there that if you are a hardcore fan that I feel like you will find constantly stuff throughout the movie. And I just like the look of Sonic and Tails and Knuckles. And
I
again,
do
no,
like those. I do like their design.
yeah, which they've completely improved from that that weird original version that they were going to do. And I feel like they've taken these last 2 years to kind of really focus on the design of these characters, and it works weirdly seamlessly to me, like in with like a lot of times when you have that like CG character in a live action world kind of thing, like it can be awkward. And then but I think Jim Carrey's on the same level as them, so I think he's so ridiculous looking and like everything that he's doing that it almost feels like he is a CG character at times too. And then yeah, I could do without his sidekick. I could do without a lot of the human cast. Like I almost don't even like I would almost prefer if these took place on these other universes or worlds that they've kind of shown and just have been all CG characters and stuff like that. Like you could make a fully CG movie, but you always kind of have to bring it back to humans and Earth to kind of have a hook for certain audiences and stuff like that. But yeah,
And the
man,
other thing I gotta say as well that I don't understand character wise with both of these movies is the sister-in-law. I don't understand
yeah,
why she hates
yeah, we brought that up in the first one, I
James
remember.
Marsden. Yeah, it's like I get it if like okay, he's a cop,
Yeah.
but also like he seems like the nicest human being. Like I would like something where it's like to know like specifically
Give me that
what it
backstory, that origin
is.
story. Paramount Plus series, baby. Let's
Probably,
go.
probably, but like it just it that also kind of plays into like the classic stereotypical sitcom thing where you have
Totally.
the usually it's the mother-in-law or the father-in-law that hates the person that their
But here's the
child is.
sister-in-law. Yeah.
Yeah, and here and that's the supplement here where it's like the sister-in-law just no matter what
It's a
hates
subplot
Tom.
that is completely unnecessary.
Yeah,
It's so stupid.
and it just
Like
doesn't make any
all
sense.
of
Like I would get it
yeah.
if like he did something in the past, like ruined something or said
I forget if
something,
they
or
even explained that in the first
no, they
movie.
don't.
And like,
No, they
yeah.
don't because it's just like she hates him, and it's like, how could you hate this guy who's like the nicest human being ever?
Yeah. Again, it's one of those kids movies that's like, is it a great film? No. Is it a fun kids movie? I think yes. If you like Sonic the Hedgehog or you had any nostalgic kind of history with the character, like I think you should absolutely go see the movie and I think you'll enjoy it. But that being said, like it's I'm gonna give it a 3.5. Like I think it's a 7 out of 10 movie. Like it doesn't all work. It is too long. There's some subplots that feel completely unnecessary. Not every joke hits. It's very much kid focused. None of that. I like the last action set piece with the giant Dr. Robotnik robot,
Which is
but
kind of again like a
um
combination of Dragon Ball Z and Power Rangers.
Yeah. And that's the kind of shit that I loved as a kid. And I think it's colorful, like you said. The jokes are silly enough that I think kids will be like laughing because there's enough physical comedy that, not a great movie, but like a fun kids movie. So it's like a 7 out of 10, a 3.5 out of 5 for me.
I liked the Army of Darkness reference. I liked that Josh Miller got a paycheck, and it's bright and colorful, and I get it. I totally understand it. Do I love it as much as TMNT and the sequel, The Secret of the Ooze?
No, God, no.
But I
don't.
understand it, but I still just I don't have that affinity for Sonic, even though I am very much aware of the character and the lore and things like that. So I'm giving it a 2 out of 5.
Yeah, and that's again, I can't even be mad at it because like I think I get both of our perspectives, and I think those are the perspectives that you're gonna have in this movie. If you don't have a kid and you have
Or
no
an echidna.
attachment, or an attachment to Sonic the Hedgehog, this movie's not for you.
Yeah.
It's not for you. You're not gonna enjoy it. There's not much there.
Why are you seeing it if you're not, if you don't have a
yes,
kid or you don't have
I agree,
that
or
nostalgic
you have to
connection?
review it or something like
Well,
that.
that's different. Like, I mean, like we're not talking to people that are going to go to see it to review it because it's already out. Like, if you're just going into this movie like, oh, I want to see Sonic 2, and
I feel like if you want to see, if you're a paying member of the public and you want to see Sonic 2, I will be hard pressed that you're not like, that was pretty good. Like, that's my mentality here. Like, I can't,
unless
I can't
you are
fathom.
an adult that doesn't care for it, but you are taking your kids to see it because they do.
Yes. There you go. That's the other category of like, you might be happy your kid had enjoyment in it, but if you have
it's a babysitter for like 2 hours.
It really is. Yeah. So there's another, yes, I agree that the parents bringing their kids, there will be a lot of parents that if they don't know anything about Sonic the Hedgehog are going to be like, oof, this is a kid's movie for sure. So I'm
going to be watching this another 30 times, aren't I?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just thinking like now, like when like my nephew is of a certain age, like I'll be taking him to these movies and I'll just be like, fuck.
Hi, I'll take them because I love Sonic the Hedgehog, man. And like that, it's a whole other conversation of like, yeah, our parents had to do that when they brought us to Ninja Turtles, or my parents brought me to Power Rangers or the Pokemon movie or something like that, right? Like all those kind of movies that are fucking bad. They're not good movies, and like this could be placed into that.
Too, and
I think both TMNT movies are legitimately
not
good.
the third one though. Turtles in Time is pretty bad.
The first two are very like, I just love the look of New York and everything in those movies. There's a lot to find to enjoy in those movies, but I think
even the Michael Bay remakes weren't awful. Like I actually kind of liked them, even though the turtles themselves were more like what the original Sonic was supposed to be.
I agree. So I feel like every generation has that series of kids movies that are just like, these are for kids or for people who have some sort of attachment to this character.
But we need to get Street Shark. We need to get
Biker Mice
from Mars, and then we also need to get Bucky O'Hara big screen live adaptations.
Do you think we'll get any of those one day?
I mean, I didn't think I'd get a Sonic movie, and now we have 2 and a potential 3rd film and franchise beyond that.
I mean, dude, it made 70 million this weekend. We're getting a lot of Sonic the Hedgehog. I hope you're ready.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. It could be worse. It could be a lot worse. It could be another Morbius. So, no, I mean, like we could get one of those things. Like I wouldn't be surprised if, like, because of Sonic doing so well, where you'll have studios being like
looking at other 90s kind of
and Biker Mice from Mars, Street Shark, Bucky O'Hara, like all of those characters kind of fit in that group.
Gargoyles. Does Disney ever do a live action Gargoyles movie?
Bring back Keith David as Goliath.
I wouldn't be surprised. I would love a live action Gargoyles.
Although the Gargoyles, I mean, I talked about it on the regular show. It does get into some very dark places. Well, like there's one episode where Brooklyn shoots the cop character with her gun by mistake because he's playing with it as like a toy, and he shoots her, and it's like, wow, this is dealing with like some really dark issues for a kid's show.
Thank you all for listening or watching. We really, really do appreciate it. I think you got both perspectives of Sonic the Hedgehog from this review. If you like this, we have a lot more stuff you guys can check out right now. We have a review for a movie we absolutely loved, Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is now playing in wide release. So if you're in there should be a theater in your city that's playing it, unless you're in a small town, then you might have to go to a bigger city.
But it is also expanding in the coming weeks as well.
So hopefully it will be playing near you soon. We have the review for the first 4 episodes of Moon Knight. Speaking of some MCU stuff, Morbius, which Eric mentioned, The Bubble. Sonic the Hedgehog is a masterpiece compared to those 2 movies.
I'll watch that 12 times over.
Yeah. And then Richard Linklater's Apollo 10.5: A Space Age Childhood. So go check those out. We have interviews with the Daniels and Ki Hui Kwan for Everything Everywhere All at Once. So go check those out on our main feed, the Untitled Movie Podcast feed. And then we just put up our 120th draft, where it was Ultimate Bayhem. We talked about Michael Bay. We talked about Vin Diesel's Instagram announcing Brie Larson for Fast 10. We talked about Mad Max Fury Road. We talked about what we've been watching. We talked about Spider-Man No Way Home again on Blu-ray. CinemaCon, Cannes, tons of stuff. So go check out that as well. One-stop shop for everything. Just head over to Letterboxd, which is Untitled_movies, our HQ. We post all of our video links, all of our reviews, everything over there. So go check that out. And as always, my name is Matt Rohrbeck. You can find more of my work around the internet, but mostly at UntitledMoviePodcast.com. And you can follow me on all social medias at Matt Rohrbeck.
And I'm Eric Marchin. You can find more of my video reviews on RogersTV.com/CinemaScene and on the social medias at EM6211.
Until next time.
Tails is definitely a peeping Tom.
Gotta go fast, baby.